I'd like to officially welcome you here to I'm a Manager, Help Me Increase Productivity. And as I just said, I'm Karla Brandau, and I have with me
Chris Eckert. Good to see everybody.
And we are delighted that you have chosen to join us today. And what I'd just like to start with is saying that everyone wants to increase their productivity and personal productivity. We want to increase that. But now, as a manager, you are concerned about increasing the productivity of your team. And so I'm going to start with just a couple of questions to get your mind going, okay, today, and see kind of how you feel about time management. So true or false, pressure will end. Go ahead. You can put that in the chat box. Do you think pressure will end? And by the way, there are no right or wrong answers. So go ahead and put that in the chat box. Will pressure end? Let's see what people are saying. And like I say, there's no right or wrong answer because technically pressure will end is a false thing. Yes, Kathleen says false. Yes. And the reason why is because pressure only ends when you leave this earth. Other than that, it's always going to be there. So the second question is working early, working late, working weekends will get me caught up and end job pressure. How many believe that? Anyone want to put that in? Take a stab at that? Like I say, there's no right or wrong answers because working early, working late will end job pressure just for the short time. But, if you stayed in late Friday night, worked Saturdays, and then you got to Tuesday, you are dead tired. So working early, working late only works in the short term. Okay, one last. I will have blocks of discretionary effort every day to leisurely finish my to-do list. And yeah, I'm sure that's going to come in as false too, because we know that that is not true. And I remember in the years when they said, when the personal computers come out, you're going to have so much leisure time, you don't know what to do with it. Right. Now we just have more and more to do. So let's jump into this, to our discussion here, because the priorities that you are setting for your team and for yourself start with your company vision, values, and mission statements. And then those that are set, and we usually don't look at those too much, but they should guide your productivity because they flow into the departmental or your unit or your team long-term goals and objectives. And that is how the employee integrates those objectives into their personal planning. And the reason this is important is because, I can look busy all day long. I can be doing a lot of stuff, but I'm not choosing to do the things that move the company forward, that move my assignments forward, that move my tasks forward so that my company can be successful. Now, the other thing that's important as we look at this is you see I have manager and employee check midpoints. So when you give the employee a task to do, assign them something, make sure that you say, I'm going to check in with you and whatever it is, 2 weeks, 2 months, it doesn't matter. But I'm going to check in with you. So they know that they have to be accountable and that you're going to come and talk to them about how the project is going. So this drives their daily productivity. And there are so many things that we can talk about in today's productivity thing, but I'll give a couple more slides and then I'll let Chris jump in here. One of them, of course, is that when you have a manager and I'm going to have this meeting and I know that what I have to say is going to move my team. We're going to get results. And then what happens, and Chris, I'll let you address this, is that what? Tell them about this.
Yeah, so I think this is a really good way to see, they see the forest and then you see the individual trees or tasks. And what this kind of says is, as a manager, you have worked on this task and you know how you want it done, when you want it done, the parameters of it, the costs involved, and then you hand it to your team or your staff or your assistant or somebody else to do it, and they don't know what it is, and they don't have the time that it took for you to put this all together, and you're like, okay, go ahead and do this, I need it by Friday, and they don't know what that is. So if you spend a couple of minutes just talking to them, of giving them guidance of what they're looking for and what your goal is out of it, what do you want to get out of it at the end of the day? What are you looking to solve? And if you spend just a couple minutes with them, I tell you, it's going to make everything so much quicker, faster, better, easier, and probably produce better results. But I think this is such a good analogy of the forest to the trees, where, you're seeing all the trees and the details, and they get overwhelmed by the forest. So yeah, spend a moment and really tell them what you're looking for.
Oh, I totally agree with that. And when you're looking for the results and you're trying to get them to understand, like Chris says, they haven't thought about it like you have. So you need to sit down and individually talk to them about it so that they feel competent of going forward. Because if you don't, this is what it's going to look like. I want you to look at the face on this man. Chris, have you ever felt like that?
Yeah, a couple times. Yes. Very much so.
Because if they don't know where they're going and you've just said, I need this by Friday, like Chris said, then it's like, where do I start? What do I do? And just looking at this, I have a productivity pyramid that I use in my instruction, whether it's online or whether it's live. And just to start this discussion about the pyramid here, in 1950, there was a man whose name was Alan Lakin, and he postulated that you're going to be more productive if you use the ABC standard of prioritizing. So A's are things that must be done. They have to get done. B's are things that, I should do them, like I should pay the water bill. C's are things that could be done. I could do that. Now, for managers, what I have added here is the D, which means there's two things. One, don't do it, delegate it. And so either you don't do it, you let it drop off, or you delegate it. So that's one thing that you should always think about when you're looking at the to-do list and when you're overwhelmed with your own tasks about what you have to do. And see, that's the beauty of delegation, is that you can use delegation to free up your time to do the tasks that you have been asked to do. Now, one more, and then I'm going to let Chris comment on our pyramid. E stands for everybody else. Because I promise you that if you do not know what you're going to do during the day, everybody else will eat up your time. It's just like they want a little piece of you, and they come and they ask you all these questions, and will you do this? Will you do that? And it just goes on and on. So, Chris, what would you add to this?
I think you pretty much hit it all. I mean, you have a very good point of everybody looks at it differently, and I have to go with the concept of, if you don't plan your time, somebody else will. I think that's a really good way to think about it, is that, you have 15 minutes, you can get something done, you can get something started. But if you don't, if you allow your mind to wander, or you jump online, or somebody stops by and talks to you, I think protecting your time is important. And I don't think a lot of people think of it that way, but I hate to use the adage, time is money, but time is money, and if you have an 8-hour day and you're giving your time away, now you have a 7.5-hour day, but you're still expected to get the work done. And I think that's where all the frustration and confusion comes of, why am I not getting my work done? And it's, as they say, plan the work the plan.
Oh, excellent. And I'd just like to key into this time is money just for a second, because if you think of the annual salary that you're paying the people, and you have a meeting and you bring them all in, think of that annual salary amount up there, that if you waste the time in the meeting, you have lost that much money.
Yeah, good point.
Okay, so now let's talk a little more about this prioritizing, because things can move up to urgency. Now, there's a difference between urgency and crisis. Crisis is something you can't control, like God, weather, and the taxes. But urgency is a positive thing because it moves you into action. Now, why it's at the top of the pyramid is, let's just take this little scenario. Let's say I have a task that I think is a B today, and I'm not sure if it has the urgency to do now. Okay, but it's a solid task that I have to get done sometime. So it's sitting there as a B. Well, my advice is, if you let it sit for one more day, it will have two choices. Either one, it can move down, maybe move down to delegation, or B, it can move up to A, and it could even move up to urgency. If your manager comes in and says, I need this, I have to have this right now. So then when it moves up to urgency, you kind of drop everything and you do it. In fact, I was doing some programs for the Department of Natural Resources here in Atlanta on time management. And they said, when the governor calls, everything else is gone. It's dropped down. We're doing what the governor says. So, Chris, do you have any comments you want to add on this?
I was going to say that and the boss too, right? I mean, the boss, the governor, the president, anybody. I think the part I would add is you have to decide what you think is urgent and not urgent, and maybe confirm that as well, right? So, I reported to a boss one time early on, and he actually told me, he said, I'm going to send out emails and texts at all hours of the day, but I don't expect you to respond to them. It's just something I need to get off my chest. I need to get it out there. I know if it's in your inbox, it's off of my plate. And I thought that was really cool. So then that way I did respond at 10 o'clock at night on everything. And not only that, but once you respond and you start down that kind of that relationship, you're setting a tone. And if you want to work at 10 o'clock at night and 24 hours a day, that's great. But I think it's important to, what is an urgency? And not only that, but the person giving the task, hey, it's not urgent right now. I just need a couple of days. I just want you to think about it. Versus the other part of when you receive it, hey, is this urgent? And I don't think you're being insubordinate or rude or anything like that. I just think you're trying to prioritize, when they need it, because you would hate for them to be working on a big project and all of a sudden everything goes to the side for this one task.
That is absolutely critical advice that you have given us. And I would just like to key into a couple of things. Number one, the stress reduced inside of you when your manager, your boss said, I'm just sending this to you. You don't have to respond tonight. And that's a stress reducer for you because, everything that we've been reading is well-being. It's like people were, what's the word, quiet quitting because they couldn't handle this 24-hour being on. And so so I think that is a credible point for you to make, Chris. Thank you for that. And this leads us right into this one. Tell us about prioritize. And I know that that's the British way of saying prioritize, but I couldn't resist this graphic because it was so great.
Yeah, I think one of the neat things about the webinars that we produce is that you walk away with something, and we really want everybody to walk away with pay. Prioritize activities by yield. So think about what this activity or this task is going to do for you. Is it, like we've talked before, that 20% of the work makes up for 80% of the people. So is it a time thing? Is it a money thing? Make sure to prioritize what is the activity, what are you going to get out of it? And, or is it going to help somebody else? So it's kind of like you do the easy task first and you do the hard task later. But before you take on a task, actually think about what's the yield going to be. And the yield can be saving you time, saving you money, moving the business forward. Maybe you're working on a PowerPoint and it's going to help the next person, but actually think about it. And I think once you think about the yield, that kind of helps you put those tasks in order.
Great advice. And just a little personal thing here. If you prioritize the A's first, you have to do that, or the B's and the C's will eat up all your time. But when I prioritize my A's, it totally ruined any type of cleaning up my office, cleaning out my desk drawers.
Right.
That's not high yield.
Yeah. Important to you, but not to others. Yeah.
Yeah, it's important to look nice, and all that. But to send out the marketing email or contact a client, maybe if you're in sales, I think everyone would understand this. If you're in sales and you're trying to increase your sales, maybe the highest yield is not to do cold calls, but to contact the clients that you've had before and see if they could use any more of your services. So,
yeah, good point.
Okay, so prioritize by yield, what's going to give you the greatest payoff, you might say. And now let's go into delegation, because delegation could magically, do you see that word, magically lighten your load. I love that. When I saw that, I go, whoa, yeah, we could use that more. And I had to laugh because Chris and I were talking about this. Why don't we delegate more? Well, do you want to take the first couple there, Chris?
Yeah, I think lack of trust and previous mistakes. So, when you're working with a team, you can't assume they're just going to trust everything you say because you're the boss. There's a lot of dynamics come in. You could be a new boss, they could be a new employee. You have to build that trust. If you spend just 15 minutes getting to know each other and kind of building that bond, then when you're handed something to do, then you want to do it. Then you understand why you're doing it. And I think the lack of trust comes from not actually starting out small with, let's have a cup of coffee. Tell me about yourself. How do you like to work? What is your results oriented? What do you need to do? And I think that if you do that, it starts to eliminate all the trust and mistakes and all that. And now when you ask for something, they're probably going to be more active to do it.
Absolutely. So this relationship, this rapport that you build up with the employee is extremely important. And I think that you have to start and give them tasks that they can do. Because then your trust in them and their trust in you will improve. And previous mistakes, that's a tough one because we're all human. And so if you as a manager can understand that your employees are human too, and that there will be human mistakes, then I think you can get past this and learn to trust them better. The third one there is I want it done right. That's a big one because whose neck is on the chopping line? I'm in the guillotine if it doesn't go right. But the last two, Chris and I laughed at because I'm really good at it. I like it. No, I mean, I love to do this. Right, Chris?
Yeah, very, very much so. And just because you like and love it doesn't necessarily mean that you're the best at it. While we're on this topic, Karla, Tanya wrote in, she has a good part. She said, the hard part is because I don't have a team that has the same heart for the work that we do. Ooh. So, the team doesn't share the same passion that Tanya and her other, I'm going to say team or staff. So I'm curious, she's got a good point. How do you build that trust? How do you build that connection?
That's very interesting. I think it comes back to your passion and how you feel about it. And you have to somehow enthuse them with that or get them on the right task assignment so they feel like they're growing and that they're doing something for it. I don't know what the task is, but somehow you've got to make that personal connection with them and that rapport. And I think it goes back to when we talked about, what are your values, your vision, your mission? I mean, that's really nebulous out there, but if you can bring that back to them and say, we want to achieve this because, and show them what it's going to do to help someone else or to move it forward, and then show them the benefits. I don't know if it's something where you get bonuses if you finish up, or if it's something where you really help someone, but you've somehow got to go, oh, Tonya says she's in social services. Okay, so I think there you want to connect them to the real people, like show them who's going to be helped by doing this. And hopefully that will get them. Because they have to be aligned with what you're doing. And I hate to say this, but if they cannot align with what you're doing, you need to move them to another section of the company because you want people who are aligned with your goals.
And just to add real quick, if they're not aligning with the job, I think Karla has a good point. Find some place for them to align with. Right. So if you're in social services, maybe they don't like the desk, maybe they don't like the office, but if you could show them the benefits of what they do and that what they do every day touches people, that might be a good way to say, hey, look, I get it. The work's hard. It's long hours. It's tough. But at the end of the day, if you could just think about what we do for those people, those other human beings, that might be it. Nobody jumps up and down and says, hey, I get to go to work for 40, 50 hours a week. It's great. It's wonderful. But it's either the people, the work, the lunch break, the perks, something like that they get out of it. So don't concentrate that, yay, I want to go to work for 40 hours a week. Concentrate on why are you here?
Excellent. And I just have to share this story since you brought that up because I had a lady in one of my programs that said that she ran the YMCA. And every day she would go to the lifeguard and say, I really appreciate it that you came to work today. And one day he says, well, why do you care? And she says, because if you don't come to work, I have to close the doors, and my clients, my customers, the people in the community are going to be angry. And so it was that touch, that personal touch, and he stayed with her till he went to college. So, okay. Let's now talk about something called the Eisenhower Matrix. And Eisenhower was the 34th president of the United States. And as you know, he came off of World War II as a hero. And this is what he said, that how he prioritized his time. And I think this is amazing. And it relates to, when I was reading about the Eisenhower Matrix, it said that Covey even used this when he was setting up the what's the word? The important and the, that word is escaping me right now. Valuable. Anyway, so when you're prioritizing, you look at needs attention, do it now. That's your high A. Okay. And then you go down to this caution where I'm going to decide, should I do this or not? Those are your B's. And you're saying, well, I am going to decide to do this, and I'm going to schedule it. I'm going to put it on a day in the future when I can get to it. And if you're using like the Microsoft Outlook calendar, you put it on a date in the future and you bump into it. You know that this is what you have to do on this date. And then, of course, again, you can decide or you can delete it, one or the other, but at least you've made a decision on it. And then, of course, there's some down here that you just delete. These are the C's or the D's that we were talking about. Don't do. You just eliminate them. And sometimes this is emotional. You have to kind of let go of what's up there. Like, I don't really have to do everything. And so you just delete it. And I think that's a lot of the emails that we get in. We could just delete. But then you have this over here where you contemplate the skill level of the person. And this goes back to when we were talking about the trust that you have with people. How have they performed in the past? Have they come through? Have they met the deadline? And then you look at what their skills are, and then you delegate to them at that level. Do you want to add something there, Chris?
I have to say, I had not heard about the Eisenhower Matrix before you and I started working on this, but I think it takes, it's so simple. I think if you walk away with anything, walk away and make this your mantra. Make this what you can change it however you want, but every decision that you come across or every task, put it in the matrix, see what it comes out on the other end, and then do that. I think it's such a simple way to take all the scary stuff that happens during the day and all the decisions we have to make and throw it in the matrix, see if it works, comes out the other side. Yeah, I think this is a really cool, I'm excited about it because it's going to help my decision-making abilities.
Well, see, it's one of those things that intellectually you might say, well, I know I have to prioritize. But when you see this, and all these tasks are coming at you, and I guess we could talk about email, because tasks come in email all the time, and it's just like an avalanche. It's just dumping in on you. Yeah. And so if you can go through, and we'll use email or the tasks that are being assigned to you, do the ones that have immediate, I think Chris alluded to, is there a date on it? Do they say I need this by 5 or I need this by Friday? Do those first. And then all of the others that are floating around out there, you have to decide and schedule them, because as we said, there's lots of things you could do, but what brings you the yield that you want? If you're trying to move up in the organization, what's going to catch the light? What can you do that will catch the light of the people above you that you're trying to, get a new promotion or get on another committee or something? What will help you with that? And that's another way to look at the yield. But I think if we were better at deleting things, we would have a better mental mindset. And delegation definitely takes practice. But you can see
that's definitely a skill set right there, delegation. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. And it takes an understanding. It takes it's a two-way street. I guess we could say it that way. Two-way street. Now, one thing I wanted to add, or this diminish the priorities. I think this is kind of a summary of it. You manage project scope more effectively if you're having trouble with the project. You set more realistic deadlines. Maybe they're scared, they're frozen because they think the deadline is too close. So have a conversation with them. Maybe you need more team members, or you need to hire an intern or just someone for a few weeks. and you might need access to more resources. And then this one, learn from on-fire priorities. Just don't get through them. Can you comment on that, Chris?
Yeah. On fire priorities. I mean, that's a tough one. You know, when you look at a priority, my belief is to actually look at it, think about it, and then decide what to do with it. And don't just get through it. Don't just say, okay, I'll get it and I'll be done with it, because it may come back onto your desk. So I've had a couple things where I've done it to say, yeah, just get it done, send it out, and then it comes back, and that's now it's tenfold, right? So if you had just answered yes or no or what you thought, it would be done. But now that it went out and talked to somebody else and they got a different opinion, right? So that comes back. And so, actually think about those on fire priorities and make sure that, okay, put some time, effort, and energy to it. And I kind of look at every email or task as, once I'm done, I'm done. I don't want this to come back and say, okay, we need 2 words. And then you turn around like, now we need a paragraph. No, okay, I wish I would have looked at it more. So yeah, spend some time with them.
Yeah, excellent advice. Okay, so as we kind of close this down, I would just like to remind you that when you delegate to the strength level, if you understand the DISC and the driving forces, it really helps you. And once again, if you go over to your files over there, I have put a kind of a coupon in there that if you want a free DISC and driving forces, just email me and I will give you a link to take it. So when you know their skill set, the strengths and the limitations, this is the backbone of increasing productivity on your team. I guess it's the backbone of it when you understand that. And then going back to what Tanya asked, helping them see the benefits, helping them see the vision and catch the vision of what you're doing and how you're helping people would be the great thing. So delegate so they own the task. And one of the things that's really tough in delegation is to delegate why, but not be the micromanager that says, well, how are you going to do this? I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be right looking over your shoulder. You got to do this the way I want it done. Because then you lose the creativity and the innovation that they have inside of them. But it's so important to hold them accountable for their work. And that's why those conversations before the deadline are so important. So why proper delegation? Well, it increases a sense of responsibility regarding the team members' work. And going back to what Tanya said here, or what Tanya was asking here, do they have total responsibility for what's going on? Because that builds their self-esteem. And you want to let them know how their decision, their actions are going to impact the entire team. For instance, if someone is lagging behind and not getting their work in on time, you can let them know that is hurting X and X and X person's work because they cannot finish till that piece is done. And it also demonstrates that you trust their ability. And as I said, it builds a self-esteem. So with that, do you have anything you want to add as we kind of wind this down, Chris? Because this is our last slide here that we want you to leave with.
I have to say, this is one of my favorite slides because I never thought about, your time. But, with delegation, it's okay to delegate. I think as managers, we feel like, hey, I was hired to manage and I need to do everything. And that's not why you were hired. You were hired to delegate. You were hired to be the puppet master, so to speak. You were the person that is out there making sure that everybody does what they do. And it's supporting as well, right? So if they do the job that they're supposed to do and they need help, that's what you're there for. You're the one that gets them the new computer, the new phone, the new route to drive, the raises. You're helping more than what you think you are. So don't ever be afraid to delegate, because just because you delegate doesn't mean that you're not important. It's actually what you should be doing. And as Karla said, it's a lot about time management too, because I'm sure you have other tasks as well.
Oh, you do. And I remember an analogy one time where it says that as a manager, you're holding all these buckets, or let's say as an individual contributor, you're holding all these buckets. And then all of a sudden you're made a manager and you've got 10 buckets added. Yes. You can't keep adding buckets and adding buckets. You have to somehow delegate some of the things. And delegation is a process. Just one last thing. You delegate things and the first level is do it exactly like I tell you to. And then the next level is come and discuss it with me, and we'll decide the way forward. And then you gradually increase their responsibility or their ability to take care of things until sometimes you get to the place, well, just tell me what you did. And whoa, that is a really great place to be, because if your team's better, you're better. You're going to look better to the people that are looking for people to promote. So yes, I love this quote too. It's telling your tongue where to go instead of wondering where it went, because we've all had days like that. And just because you understand priority doesn't mean that you're not going to have another day like that, but it will help. It will help. So our next webinar in this summer series that we have is August 16th at 12 o'clock on noon, and we'll be getting some information out. And this one is unique because it's going to tell you about the Hartman Value Profile Assessment. Now, I've been using the DISC model and the driving forces model, but this is a one that will help you. It meshes together. It complements what we do in the DISC and the driving forces. And Ryan Leonard is going to be doing that. And he is going to tell you about the Hartman profile, but he's also going to tell you how to use analytics to assess and reduce high performer turnover. And he likes to call it backdoor attrition, which I think is a really great term. So we're going to hang on for another minute here if there are questions. But for coaching or programs on building teams, prioritizing, or delegation, you can call us. These are our cell phones, so you can get right to us, and we'll be more than happy to help you. So, any other questions in the chat box? Do you have a closing thought, Chris? I don't see any questions. So
I don't see any questions, which is good, which means hopefully they understood it and got everything and they're ready to go. But no, I just wanted to say that, productivity is one of those things that is constantly being looked at, is constantly being scored, with the value, whether it's time, whether it's money, whether it's effort. So, I hope we helped everybody with, a couple of just little tools for their tool belt, their toolbox to help them, on their day-to-day.
That's my wish too. And remember, as a manager, my hat is off to you. When you think about all the responsibilities you have, and I know, as we can say in kind of a joking way, that's why you get paid the big bucks. So, well, enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you for attending. And if you have any questions, be sure and call us.
Thank you, everyone.